What is going on, YouTube? So just got done with my Houston preview and coming back with my Florida Gators preview. So if you saw my SEC preview, you saw that I'm pretty high on the Florida Gators this year. I think that finding a quarterback is very important for them. You're talking about a team that went 10-4 last year. While they had Will Grier at quarterback, they were one of the most unstoppable teams in the country. And then he went down, Treon Harris came in, and the entire season kind of collapsed. So let's start with my first key player, and I just mentioned the position, and I've got Luke Del Rio. So he hasn't officially won the starting spot yet. I'm pretty sure it's still between him and Austin Appleby, but I think the job is still his for the taking. I think he's the presumed starter, and he is the favorite to win it. It cannot be said enough how important it is for Florida to have a good starting quarterback this year. You saw, if you were a Florida fan, even if you're a big college football fan, you saw what happened to Florida last year after Will Grier got suspended for steroids. The entire offense just went stagnant. They need a good passing game to be able to be successful in the SEC. Luke Del Rio, a transfer coming in from Oregon State. I think he's a good quarterback. I believe he was a 3 or 4-star quarterback coming into college. Really hasn't had a chance to shine yet, and obviously this is his chance. So my second key player is actually a guy suspended for, I believe, the first game this year, and that is Antonio Calloway. The best weapon that Florida's got on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to need him this year. I believe he might have been the only player to score a touchdown against Alabama last year in the SEC championship game. Excuse me. I'd have to go back and look that up because I think they got 2 touchdowns that game, so one of the 2. But he's tremendously important, one of the most electric playmakers in college football. They're going to need him for 2016. So my third key player for Florida is kind of surprising, but CeCe Jefferson. He will be the starting defensive end this year, a 5-star recruit in 2015. Needs to come in and have just a massive season in my mind. They lose a pretty decent amount of players along the defensive line, and while they still got a ton of talent left, Caleb Brantley, Brian Cox most notably, and I think Joey Ivey will fill his spot very well as well. CeCe Jefferson, I think, is that missing piece. He's going to have to step up and be big this year. I think he will be. I really think Jim McElwain is a very, very, very good defensive coach. Maybe not Will Muschamp type, but Will Muschamp also couldn't field an offense either in Florida, and then I think McElwain was feeling the after effects of it. But again, they're going to need a player like CeCe Jefferson to step up and fill that role. So get into my first of 2 X factors, and I've been talking about it already. I think they need to have less of a stagnant offense. You saw what happened in the Michigan game. I believe it was 40-10. Even the defense gave out after a while. This was a top 10 defense in the country last year. The offense just was nowhere to be found. I think they've got everything in place to have a successful season. They have somewhat of a young offensive line. But I expect a guy like Martez Ivey to be able to step up this year and start taking his place as the 5-star recruit and the offensive line star that he was supposed to be when he was recruited. Like I said, I think Luke Del Rio will be a better quarterback than Treon Harris, and I think they've got a decent wide receiving core to be able to work with. Like I said, Callaway, obviously a great receiver. Ahmad Fullwood also will be relied on pretty heavy. I think Dre Massey's a name to watch out for too. A guy that is probably a second stringer right now, but definitely can come in and be a very, very, very good player. So my second X factor for Florida is for them to stay healthy and not suspended. They didn't really struggle too much with health last year. Obviously, suspensions played a big role, mainly Will Grier. Antonio Callaway also are already missing a game this year. They can't afford to lose any of their guys on defense mainly. They've got a very talented defense this year, but they can't afford to lose guys like Marcus May, Jalen Tabor, Jared Davis, Brian Cox, CeCe Jefferson, Caleb Brantley. They can't afford to lose any of these guys. And I don't think that it will play too much of a role, but this can set up to be a very good season for Florida, and losing some more guys to injury and suspension can derail it pretty fast. So get into my trap game for Florida, and this might sound like a weird one, but I do think it's going to be South Carolina. I think South Carolina will be a much improved team, and I don't think a lot of people will be expecting it this year. South Carolina is coming at a time in Florida's schedule when they got a little bit of downtime. It comes after a road game against an Arkansas team that shouldn't be that good this year, and then it's 2 weeks after the Georgia game. So, and it comes right before the Presbyterian game. I think it's a game that can easily be overlooked. It's a game that seems like it should be easily won for Florida. I think if you were looking for another trap game, it would be Arkansas. Again, might be underestimating them a little bit, but I'd say if anything, it's South Carolina. But I think Florida's the type of team that can avoid upset this year for the most part. So my biggest game for Florida is a very obvious one, and that is the Tennessee Volunteers. A game that they probably shouldn't have won last year, but ended up winning at the very end, a very lucky win against Tennessee. They do have to go to Neyland Stadium this year, but I don't think they've lost to Tennessee in somewhere around 12 years. So as long as they can keep that streak going, Tennessee and Georgia will obviously be the biggest challengers for the SEC's crown. Georgia's a pretty big game as well, but I think Tennessee will be a better team this year. I think it's going to be a dogfight between Florida and Tennessee at the top, and I think the winner of that game will end up being the winner of the SEC East. They do get, obviously, the Georgia games in Jacksonville this year. So, my record prediction for Florida. Now, if you saw my SEC preview and predictions, then you already know what I think of them this year. I think they will go 11-3 as reigning SEC East champions. I don't think they're going to be able to win the SEC. I don't think they're ready for that yet. I think whatever team wins the SEC West, probably Alabama again. That was my prediction for the SEC. But I think they're going to get through their regular season two losses. I think they're going to lose one game in the SEC. I don't know what it's going to be, whether it is like LSU or Arkansas or Georgia or Tennessee. Then I don't think they'll be able to beat Florida State on the road either. Florida State, a very good team again this year. I do think they'll get a bowl win this year. I think if they do lose 2 in a row against Florida State and then the SEC championship game, then last year obviously it didn't go well for them in the SEC or in their bowl game, but I think this year will be a lot different if they actually do have a passing game. I do think it'll be a somewhat similar season record-wise to last year, but I think it's going to be a more enjoyable season for Florida fans. So that's pretty much it. See ya.